UFC Vegas 88 is coming up this weekend, and today, guys, we are going to go through the entire card, predicting each fight, breaking down each fight, and seeing if there are any betting spots we can get into. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another, like I just said, full card breakdown and prediction, guys. Timestamps will be there if you'd like to skip to any particular fight. Let's get into it. Starting off with the early prelim opener, Anheliger taking on Charalampos Grigoriou, and I apologize for pronouncing that wrong. It's a fairly new fighter. Had to go back and watch him a little bit, besides the Contender Series, of course. So, I'll start with Anheliger, who has been, of course, struggling as of late. He's one of those fighters that's just kind of around. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be disrespectful in that sense, but he's 37 years old, 12-7 speaks for himself. He is currently coming off of a 2-fight losing skid after coming to the UFC off the Contender Series, and he didn't look horrible, especially in the Jose Johnson fight. That was an entirely grappling fight, and he displayed a great amount of skill, but he can't always put it together. He's taken on UFC newcomer Charalampos Grigoriou, who did have a great Contender Series performance, with the problem being he just came in and knocked out Cameron Smothering. There's not much to see, and there's not a lot to see in quite a few of his fights. Interestingly enough, his most recent loss is against Christian Rodriguez, and he had got knocked out in that fight, but even that loss ended up aging well. But the rest of his wins, man, even before this, there really is no one that screams, okay, this is going to be a good fighter. So it's a little bit difficult to gauge where Chara is going to be when it comes into the UFC. I think this is a good opponent to take on for his debut. He is a kickboxer who has very, very slick striking with a lot of power behind his hands. Of course, out of those 8 wins, he has a lot of KO wins. Anheliger, though, it's really, really tough to say because the game plan is probably going to be to take him to the ground, but does have good jiu-jitsu skills, but it's not nearly perfect. The question becomes, how good is Charalampos' takedown defense? We don't know. Even in his fights before that, he hasn't taken on anybody that makes me go, oh, okay. But so the point being, it's a really tough fight to predict because we don't know how good Chara is. But for my official prediction, I am going to take Charalampos because, again, we know that Chad does have problems. He's 37 years old, fighting in the bantamweight division. How often do you really see that work out? Take Pedro Moises, for example. No matter how good a guy is, sometimes he just can't keep up. I will be picking Charalampos to get a knockout. I'm not confident in that at all, though. I still question where he fits into the UFC game. Moving on to the next fight, we have Cory McKenna taking on Jaqueline Amorim. I'll start with Cory McKenna because she has sneakily got a couple okay wins here. Don't get me wrong, since the Contender Series, there's nothing to really scream about. She got a win over Vanessa Demopoulos, and you can see that she's taken on people in this division that is, really, there's nothing special about it. She has an okay all-round game, but mainly wants to work her jiu-jitsu win. But she's taking on Jaqueline Amorim, who also wants to work in her jiu-jitsu. Now, guys, it is important to note, I don't see what everybody else sees in Jaqueline Amorim. And I've been watching this girl. I'm a big fan of LFA if you don't follow the channel. I've been watching this girl since her LFA days. Yeah, you know what? She has jiu-jitsu skills, but I think my entire opinion really came in true against this Montserrat Ruiz fight. She had a dominant fight, okay, with arguably 2 10-8 rounds, but she couldn't find any submissions on somebody who's tiny and absolutely useless. She's useless, Montserrat. She is one of the worst fighters of all time. Well, not because, like, her technique too, but this girl is too small. She's useless for the division. Anybody could beat her. She kept trying to get submissions. Her opponent offered no resistance, and somehow she just lost it. I have never been more unimpressed by somebody having such a dominant fight in Jaqueline Amorim. So people are talking about, like, oh my god, she's this huge jiu-jitsu girl. She's okay. I just don't get what people are buying into. I don't see it. She's your typical WMMA fighter, maybe a little bit of a level above that. That's how I feel about Jaqueline Amorim. But Cory McKenna, here's the question, because I would imagine this fight's going to end up on the ground, even though sometimes you do see grapplers end up striking. If that's the case, Jaqueline Amorim does have a significant reach advantage on Cory McKenna. Like, very, very significant. It's funny because they're the same height, too, but she's not even that really good at striking. Jaqueline doesn't strike very often. It's tough to say because I feel like Cory McKenna is definitely the better striker. A little bit more slick, but 10-inch reach disadvantage? That's tough. If Jaqueline Amorim can't outstrike Cory McKenna, I will be off the Amorim train forever. Not that I'm really on it. The question becomes, who's going to have the better ground game? Because I believe this fight will end up on the ground. I actually give that slight edge to Cory McKenna. I don't think Jaqueline is all that good. And I know I'm saying a lot about Jaqueline right now. It's just, I'm not nearly as impressed with her as a lot of people are, and I don't mind Cory McKenna in this matchup at all. I will be picking Cory McKenna with like maybe a 60% confidence level. I'm going to pick her to win though. I think she's going to grind her way to a decision. I think that both girls won't be able to submit each other because they both do have okay defense and offense when it comes to jiu-jitsu. It's just going to be one of those okay grappling fights in my opinion. I'm going to pick Cory McKenna to get the win. Moving on to the next fight, guys. This honestly might be fight of the night. We have Josh Culibao taking on Danny Silva. I am very excited for this fight. I think Josh Culibao is one of those fighters in the UFC that is very underappreciated. I think he's very underrated. He is a great fighter. Just look, he has taken on some great names and gotten some great wins in the entirety of the featherweight division. He's looked so good. I know he's coming off of a loss against Lerone Murphy where I wouldn't take this, and I don't know how many newer fans watch the channel. Lerone Murphy did end up out-grappling him, but I would not take that away from Josh at all because Josh actually does have a very strong ground game. I don't know what happened here, just maybe an off night, maybe Lerone was better on the night, but I think Josh Culibao is better than his previous performance. He's a great kickboxer with grappling to back it up, and he's taken on Danny Silva, who is mainly a boxer, but oh my god, is his boxing absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. He's so patient, accurate, powerful. After he suffered his first loss in the LFA, he bounced back with two absolutely incredible performances, both in the LFA again and on the Contender Series. Again, guys, if you follow the channel, big fan of LFA over here. Danny Silva's a guy I've been watching for a little while, and Danny Silva, oh my god, I've been impressed from what I've seen him, man. He's been so good, and I understand, like, even before, you can have some questions about the opponents that he's taken on, but the skill set's there, man. The skill set is absolutely 100% there. He's one of those guys that I really love how patient he is, especially when his opponent's rocked. He doesn't swing wild. He doesn't go crazy. He picks his shots, and they are so nice and powerful. He'll knock you down. He'll wait for you to get up. I love it. He's taking on Josh Culibao, though, and this is why it's such an interesting fight, because you have Danny Silva, who's such a strong boxer, but Culibao has the all-around game. He's a kickboxer. He can open up the grappling. Will he open up the grappling? I don't know, because Josh Culibao definitely would like to kickbox. This is such a tough fight, man. This is such a tough fight to predict, and I can't wait to see how these two end up matching up. Both of them are so good at what they do. I'm going to have a slight lean to Josh Culibao just because he's taken on better opponents and had that UFC experience, what Danny Silva has not had yet. And he can also open up the grappling. We don't know a ton about Danny Silva's high-level grappling. That's my question. So I'm going to lean towards Josh Culibao, but Danny Silva is absolutely an underdog opportunity here. If you're looking for value, I like Danny Silva as well. I'm not picking him to win, though. Moving on to the next fight, we have Thiago Moises versus Mitch Ramirez. Thiago Moises, man, I always say that he is so much better than his record shows. He is one of those guys that has taken on so many people in the UFC, so many high-level opponents. Just like, take a look at his last five here. Take a look at his resume. Yeah, he's got some wins, he's got some losses, but these are against top-level competition. Thiago Moises is very good, has an all-round game. No matter where the fight goes, Thiago Moises can absolutely hang with you. Mitch Ramirez, on the other hand, we have not seen nearly as much from, but Mitch Ramirez is mainly a boxer. He'll throw a takedown out here and there, but we haven't really seen too much. He prefers to stand up and bang with you. He came onto the Contender Series and ended up losing against Carlos Prats. And something else too that's important to note is I'm almost sure that this Contender Series fight was short notice. Could be wrong on that. Don't take what I'm saying there with a grain of salt, but this is also a short notice replacement. Thiago Moises did take this fight on short notice, but even in this loss against Carlos Prats, I really did like his performance. He looked great when they were fighting in the pocket. He was technical. He was powerful. Carlos Prats was just better. There's nothing really else to say about that, but then he bounced back with a nice win against Arian Tavares back in the LFA, and now he's getting a shot in the UFC. He's a boxer who has an okay amount of power behind his hands, but at the end of the day, I think Thiago Moises has the experience to get the job done. He can take the fight anywhere he wants. He can open up the grappling if he would like to. And even if it stays on the feet, yeah, I would give Mitch Ramirez a chance. He is a pretty good boxer, but I think Thiago Moises has seen people like Mitch Ramirez. I think Thiago Moises has wins better than Mitch Ramirez, and I think Thiago Moises is going to get the win here. Moving on to the next fight, and this is another fantastic fight. We have Osbourne versus Jafel Filho, and I love watching both of these guys separately. Them coming together is going to make nothing but excitement. We have Osbourne, who I've always said, man, just like we were talking, I can't remember who we were talking about just now, but regardless, he is so much better than his record. Thiago Moises, excuse me. He is so much better than his record says. In 12-6, he has taken on some great competition. He's had some success. He's had some losses. Ode Osbourne is a really, really good striker with a little bit of hole in the grappling game. If you fight somebody who's a really, really good wrestler, somebody really good at staying on top, like Asu Almabayev, you can get Ode Osbourne exposed. He is not completely useless on the ground, don't get me wrong, but that's definitely a hole in his game. He definitely wants to come in, he definitely wants to knock you out, and he is very good at doing so. He can push a high pace. Ode Osbourne is the real deal at flyweight. He's taking on Jafel Filho. Now, this is a fighter who I am very, very high on. This guy can do it all. He can hang in the striking, but he is a very, very strong grappler, has submissions behind it. This dude, you see every once in a while some fighters come in with heart. This dude's heart is on another level. What I see happening here is, let's say Ode does get like a knockout blow. I don't think he's going to finish Jafel Filho. I really, really don't. I think he's going to get up. I think he's going to push the pace, and I think he's going to do what he does best. No matter where he is in the fight, he can come back, and that's not to say that's all he has. He is not a fighter with just heart. He is a fighter with fantastic technique who can definitely expose Ode Osbourne on the ground. Jafel Filho has only had one hiccup as of recently, and that's after his Contender Series fight, and he even showed a good performance against Muhammad Mokaev. Bounced back with another really, really good win. Guys, when these two come at it, it's probably going to be a little bit of a striker versus grappler matchup. I don't think that it's a striker versus grappler matchup in the sense where Jafel can't hang with Ode. I just think that Ode certainly would be getting the better of him. What Jafel does have is fantastic takedowns, a fantastic ground game, a fantastic way to control and grind people, and I think this could look very similarly to Ode Osbourne's performance against Asu Almabayev. I like Jafel a lot in this fight. I think it's a good matchup for him, and I'm going to be picking him to win this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Josiane Nunes taking on Chelsea Chandler. You know, Chelsea Chandler coming back from a horrible performance in the sense where all we got from that fight is her just running away. I've never seen that before. And ever since then, poor Chelsea Chandler's become a meme. But regardless, we're starting with Josiane Nunes, excuse me. She is a powerful striker who is very weird because sometimes she strikes and you see some okay technique from it. And other times she just wings like Francis Ngannou. It's super weird, so you don't exactly know what you're getting when she strikes, but she does have a few KOs in her record. Like, she has power behind her hands. She is 10-1. She's looked pretty good so far. When it's on the feet, it's pretty much her game, and it's important to note too where she hasn't had nearly perfect performances. She's also not taken on anybody of significance. I mean, same thing for Chelsea Chandler, really, to be honest with you. The only name is really Norma Dumont, and she lost that fight, right? So it's a really, really weird fight to break down. She is, speaking about Nunes still, she is a striker with a hole in the ground game. Chelsea Chandler is a little bit she's just an okay fighter. She prefers to fight on the ground. She does have okay power in her hands too. It's honestly just a strange fight. Both these girls are strange fighters, and it's a strange fight, them matching up. It's a good matchup, to be honest with you. So, here's the thing. Chelsea Chandler is a big girl. She is 5'8", taking on Nunes, who is 5'2", and I really think that'll matter because Chelsea Chandler will want to come in. Probably, she'll strike a little bit, but she'll probably want to take Nunes down because we know that Nunes does have a little bit of a hole there. Here's my question, though. Is Nunes' power going to affect the size difference that Chelsea Chandler has? How well is she going to be able to reach Chelsea Chandler? That I don't really know. That I really, really don't know. And on top of that, Chelsea Chandler, that left such a sour taste in my mouth. She started running away when she started losing. That going to happen again with Josiane Nunes? I don't know. It's such a weird, weird matchup. 5'8" is pretty big for that division. She's a big girl taking on Nunes. So I don't know if I'd have to see them really standing against each other. It's just, like I said, man, it's a super, super weird fight. I don't want to pick somebody who literally ran away in her last fight and looked horrible. Chelsea Chandler doesn't have much experience, but Nunes doesn't really have it either. It's, again, so weird, dude. Definitely don't bet on this fight. I'm going to pick Chelsea Chandler against my better judgment. I like the size difference here. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of two pretty good fighters. We have Mike Davis taking on Natan Levy. Now, Natan Levy, we haven't been able to see. He's had some canceled fights, but Natan Levy is always fun to watch. He has one of those karate-ish style bases where he's pretty good striker, but the problem is he's lacking a little bit in the danger department. We've seen him for a little while now. He's been bouncing back since the Contender Series. We kind of know what Natan Levy's all about. He's a fighter who kind of, like I said, he has that karate-based style, but then he can also shoot a takedown, but there's not a lot behind his takedowns. It's like, from what we've seen him, from the very little that we've seen him, he's been slowly improving, but I'm still not all that convinced of Natan Levy yet. But he's taken on Mike Davis, somebody who I am pretty high on. Mike Davis is the complete package. He's fantastic kickboxer, fantastic boxer. He has very good wrestling to back it up and decent jiu-jitsu. He is coming off of, after his loss to Gilbert Burns, he is coming on a 3-fight win streak, and he's looked very good in all of these fights, especially the Bourquechop fight, a fight that a lot of people did not expect him to win in that sense. Mike Davis is a very underrated fighter, and I honestly don't mind the minus 250 on him. I think he is going to beat Natan Levy. I think that he has I think he'll be slicker in the striking department. I think he'll be able to put on pressure Natan Levy to the point where Natan might get a little bit uncomfortable, because we have seen him not gas out completely. He's slowed down. He has had issues with pressure in the past, and I think Mike Davis will be the guy who will just consistently get the better of the most exchanges whenever they fight. Plus, Mike Davis can open up the grappling in this department. I do like Mike Davis in the matchup, and I think that he'll beat Natan Levy. Now, guys, really quick before we move on to the main card, if you are interested in hearing or seeing what exactly I will be betting on, because I make a lot of predictions here, but I don't nearly bet on every single fight. If you guys are interested in seeing my official plays, I make videos for members only, YouTube community posts for the bets that I will be making every single weekend, Thursday or Friday before the event. Very cheap compared to every other channel. Check out the channel membership. That's what you'll be getting. You'll be getting my official bets with my confidence level, the reason for picking these fighters, and if you want to know what I'm betting on, sorry for keeping you, just join the channel membership. Let's get into the main card, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Moving on to the next fight, we have GM3 Gerald Meerschaert taking on Bryan Barberena. I actually really like watching Gerald Meerschaert fight. We know what we're getting with Gerald Meerschaert. He is a tough veteran, 36 years old right now in the middleweight division. He doesn't always put it together, but he is one of the greatest gatekeepers ever. I will say, though, in this Andre Petroski fight, if this went on another 30 seconds, he would have finished the fight. He was finishing very, very strong there. It was a sloppy back-and-forth fight. With Gerald Meerschaert, you're getting a solid grappling game with underrated striking. Barberena, though, Bryan Barberena, Bam Bam Barberena. We have seen him for a very long time. Unfortunately, behind brawling, Bryan Barberena isn't all that special. Gerald Meerschaert hasn't been able to put a lot of wins together as of recently. He's taken on some really tough guys, though. Like, even getting a win over Bruno Silva is pretty good. Like, Gerald Meerschaert can beat anybody on any given day. He is a very tough fighter. It's just he's better than his record shows. He's a good fighter, man. Just, again, he hasn't been able to put together. Bryan Barberena, though, 18-11, that does make sense for his record. That does make sense, because it's shocking to me sometimes that he beats these guys. He beat both Matt Brown and Robbie Lawler, which was honestly pretty shocking over here. But then you have 3 straight losses in a row. Bryan Barberena does also suffer the I like to take on really tough fights type thing, but there's not a lot behind him. He showed up, especially in the middleweight division. I did not like how Bryan Barberena showed up. He looked fat. He looked unathletic. He looked like he was just coming there for a paycheck. Guys, I think Gerald Meerschaert's going to style on him. I know we've seen Gerald Meerschaert have issues before, and Bryan Barberena can catch you, but I think Gerald Meerschaert is just better. That's all. He's just better than Bryan Barberena. If Bryan Barberena doesn't catch him, Gerald Meerschaert's going to get the win. So I'm picking Gerald Meerschaert to get a takedown and submit Bryan Barberena. Moving on to the next fight, we have a rematch between Pannie Kianzad versus Macy Chiasson 2. Now, the first time they fought was years ago, and how it went was basically Macy Chiasson got on top of Pannie and held her down. It's something that we've seen happen to Pannie in the past, and it's something that we could very well see happen to her again. Pannie Kianzad has a 16-7 record. There's nothing too special, but she's your typical WMMA fighter over here. She hasn't fought really anybody of significance. Even, to be honest with you, I understand that Raquel Pennington is the champion, but she is nothing of significance. 11-8 as a champion. That's crazy to me. That just shows the level of the division for you. She's a boxer with nothing else in her game, and she's taking on Macy Chiasson, who has taken on some definitely better opponents, but the problem is, I don't know what to think of Macy Chiasson, because when you watch her strike, when you watch her grapple, you can clearly see some technique there, right? She knows what she's doing, but the problem is when she gets caught up in these fights and actually, like, as the fight goes on, you know what I mean? She just doesn't pull it together. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what to make of her. I hope that made sense, because I know that's a really, really weird thing to say. She just has some problems always getting it done in the cage. But other than that, this fight, I would imagine it's going to play out the same way, because Macy Chiasson, even on the feet, she has a big reach advantage. She can open up the kickboxing, and we know that Pannie has a huge problem in the grappling department. That's something Macy Chiasson is good at. She's going to be the bigger girl. She has takedowns. She can take down Pannie, and just like the first time, lay on top of her, possibly even find a submission. I think it's a pretty easy fight to call, in my opinion, but you never know with this division, and the odds kind of say so. I am going to pick Macy Chiasson to win the fight again, with a medium level of confidence, excuse me. Moving on to the next fight, a fight that I am very, very excited for. We have Christian Rodriguez taking on Isaac Dulgarian. Now, the first thing we need to note is we have not seen a lot from Isaac Dulgarian. This dude comes out, he takes you down, and he beats you up until he submits you or he kills you. He is so good at what he does, and he's so powerful. Before the UFC, he hasn't taken on anybody of significance, but he passed the first test against Francis Marshall in the UFC. He got a very quick ground and pound KO. So the problem with Isaac Dulgarian is we haven't seen the rest of his game, and we haven't seen him in any long-lasting fights, okay? But from what we do know, he is very, very good at what he does. He's taken on Christian Rodriguez, who is finally moving up to the featherweight division. That's something to note, but I'm not sure if that will really matter because both the height and reach definitely are the same. Christian Rodriguez does belong at featherweight. He couldn't make the bantamweight cut, but this dude, man, I am so high on Christian Rodriguez. I think he's a fantastic fighter. We've seen him for a little while now. He's taken on great fighters. He stopped both the hype train of Raul Rosas Jr. and Cameron Simon. I don't mean to call them hype trains, but they're fighters that were expected to go on long win streaks, and I thought Cameron Simon was going to beat him. I was very confident in that, and I believe I bet on Cameron Simon. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I put a bet on Cameron Simon. I'm very high on him, and he's beaten both of these guys clearly. He's the perfect package for a fighter. Cardio, heart, technique, ground game, kickboxing, whatever you want to do, Christian Rodriguez can do it. He is a fantastic fighter. Here's the problem. I got no clue, or excuse me, I have no clue how Isaac Dulgarian is going to hang with a guy like Christian Rodriguez. We can't gauge his level. He could very well just come out and take Christian Rodriguez down and beat him to death. But this is a significant step up in competition. This is certainly not a fight to bet on. Can Isaac Dulgarian take down Christian Rodriguez and do what we've seen him do? I don't know. But other than that, Christian Rodriguez, we don't even know how his stand-up game is really against a guy like Christian Rodriguez. This is such a fun fight, guys. Both guys are very, very fun to watch, and I have no idea how it's going to play out. This, in my opinion, is a complete 50-50 fight. If you had a gun to my head, though, I'd pick Christian Rodriguez because we know what we're getting, and that being a fantastic fighter in Christian Rodriguez. So I'm going to pick him to win, although I do believe this is a 50-50 fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Ovince St. Preux, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't have too much to say about this fight. Kennedy Nzechukwu, sometimes he's a very inconsistent fighter, in my opinion. Sometimes he just comes out and doesn't look good, but other than that, every once in a while, he's a very powerful guy. He's looked good before. He's looked bad before, but even in his last fight, he got knocked out pretty quick. This guy is a little bit inconsistent, but I do understand the minus 500 favorite line because he's taken on Ovince St. Preux, who's 40 years old, and at this point in his career, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he sucks now. He wasn't all that good in his heyday, but Ovince St. Preux is just inactive. He doesn't have any gas in the tank. Maybe even one round. Call me crazy, though. Call me crazy. I see a world where Ovince clips him. I don't think that's going to happen, but it just wouldn't shock me. It just wouldn't shock me because we have seen Nzechukwu finish before. We have seen him just come in there, not look so great, and end up getting finished. But other than that, I think Kennedy Nzechukwu will outstrike him. He can take him down if he wants to. Ovince St. Preux stands there and does nothing but get beat up, and he's showing up for a check now. So I don't think that Ovince St. Preux has really anything to offer, and there's not a lot to talk about when you break down this fight, guys. Ovince stands there. Kennedy can do what he wants. Kennedy's going to get the win here, 199%. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Bryan Battle versus Anheliger, and this is a great fight. This is a great fight between two guys who are both fantastic. I'm going to say this. Both guys have a nice all-around skill set. Both guys can fight on the ground. Both guys can fight on the feet. Both guys are powerful. Both guys are explosive. Both guys can get submissions. They're both really, really great fighters. Bryan Battle has been improving because we have seen him lose and get controlled against Rinat Fakhretdinov, but he came back with two amazing, amazing wins. But in this fight against H.A. Fletcher, I'm not as impressed as everybody else is because I was kind of on the, oh my God, Bryan Battle's going to be contender train. I don't think that anymore. I know I just said a lot of great things about him. He's a great fighter and can definitely take out the vast majority of the guys at the unranked at welterweight. He fought a guy with, I believe it was 10 inches of a reach disadvantage. He constantly let him get close and constantly let him clinch. Somehow in the second round he found a choke, but that's just Bryan Battle adjusting in the middle of the fight. Like, I didn't like that. He should have steamrolled AJ Fletcher, and he didn't. So that left a sour taste in my mouth a little bit, but Bryan Battle, don't get me wrong, he is a fantastic, fantastic fighter. Anheliger, though, we have seen him in the Contender Series, right, against Jack Della Maddalena and had a good fight. Okay, and that's important to note is he was hanging with Jack Della Maddalena. After that, he didn't get he didn't get the UFC contract that he wanted, but now he made his way into the UFC with 1 loss, but bounced back with 2 really, really nice wins. This guy has taken on great opponents. He is a great fighter. He's very explosive. He mixes in his striking with his takedowns a lot. His cardio's great. I think both guys are really, really great fighters, and this is another fight that, in my opinion, should be a pick'em. I don't know, just like we were talking about, and this is why the matchmaking is fantastic. I don't know how this fight's going to go. I believe this to be a 50-50 fight. I'm probably not going to bet on it unless I'm feeling good about an underdog or see how they kind of stack up, but if you made me pick, guys, I'd pick Bryan Battle because he has the reach advantage, and he is typically bigger than most of the guys that he fights. Again, I'd like to see him at the weigh-ins, but this is a very close fight. I know a lot of people are loving Bryan Battle. I'm not loving it. I think he can win. I'm just not loving it. I think it's a very, very close and great matchmaking by the UFC. But if you had a gun to my head, I would pick Bryan Battle to get the win. And moving on to the main event, we have Tai Tuivasa taking on Marcin Tybura. Guys, this is crazy to me that Tai Tuivasa went on a little bit of a run that he did, and now he's lost 3 in a row. You have Tai Tuivasa, who lives up to the name Bam Bam. He wants to come in, he wants to slug it out with you, and he has very good power behind his hands. Marcin Tybura has moved up to heavyweight recently. He's a grappler, which you don't see too well. He's a very, inactive grappler. He'll take you down and kind of lay on top of you. That's a game plan for Marcin Tybura. Tai Tuivasa, I don't know why I was about to say Tyson Pedro. Tai Tuivasa has had a rough go against Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, and Alexander Volkov, but it is important to note that he's taken on top contenders here. All of these guys, except maybe Sergey, should beat him 10 out of 10 times because, you know, there's that level at heavyweight, right? There's that level that Tai Tuivasa is not at, but Cyril Gane, Sergey, and Alexander Volkov all are there, right? Marcin Tybura, on the other hand, though, he has not taken on the level of competition that Tai Tuivasa has. If you take a look at his wins, except, of course, I know he lost Alexander Volkov, but a lot of people thought Alexander Romanov was a great fighter. I still don't believe that to be. Blagoy Ivanov, nothing special there. And Tom Aspinall, of course, he ended up losing to. Marcin Tybura, at this point in his career, he's 38 years old. He is going to be, which he's probably going to have a huge mass disadvantage. That would be my guess, and I don't know if he's going to put on weight for this fight or not, but assuming that he shows up to the same level, Tai Tuivasa is going to be bigger. Makes me worry, can Marcin Tybura take him down? I really don't think he can. I could very well see Tai Tuivasa ending this fight with an uppercut. I like Tai Tuivasa. There's just, like I said, Tuivasa will beat the guys like Tybura, in my opinion. Tybura's slow. He's 38 years old now. Is he a true heavyweight? I don't even know. But then again, you could argue that with a lot of heavyweights, right? I just like Tai Tuivasa in this matchup. I think he's going to finish Marcin Tybura. I think that at this point in his career, we know what we're getting with Tai Tuivasa, and I think he's going to be able to finish him. Like I said, I could see an uppercut on the way down. It would honestly shock me if Tybura could get a takedown on Tuivasa. But I am going to pick Tuivasa to get the win here. I think he's going to knock him out. Maybe by uppercut. I don't think it's going to be a kick. But I don't know, man. I'm very, very confident in Tuivasa to get it done. With the ending of the main event there, though, guys, we are going to call it for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to listen to the complete betting guide, that will be out tomorrow. If not, if you're watching this, but after it's posted, it'll be on the channel already. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Check out the video on screen right now. Take care.